Welcome to another episode of Search News You Can Use with me, Dr. Marie Haynes. It's been a long time since I had a guest, and I have a super incredible, exciting guest today. I'm going to talk today with Cindy Krum. Cindy is the owner of Mobile Moxy. I'm going to have you in a moment, Cindy, explain what you do and what Mobile Moxy is. Cindy recorded a video this week that really blew my mind, just talking about Chrome and whether or not Chrome actually gathers some information from searchers and from our search behavior and some more things about Chrome that are very, very interesting. So first of all, I just want to say welcome, Cindy, and thank you for doing this.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Tell me, well, why don't you tell everybody who's listening or watching about Mobile Moxy and about what you do, and just tell us about you.
So I'm the CEO of a company called Mobile Moxy. We're based in Denver, Colorado, and we specialize in mobile SEO, technical SEO, and then ASO, which is app optimization. And we also have a tool set that allows you to test landing pages and test search results and track app rankings. And so those are kind of tools that we were pioneers in. No one had mobile SEO testing tools or tracking tools. And a lot of the tools out there use APIs from Google that Google tells you that they muck with so that they're not so accurate, but we actually get real Google results. So that's the sales pitch. That's it. Sorry.
No, that's good. Sell yourself. That's great.
And then I speak and travel to conferences because I really enjoy, that's my favorite part of the job, is speaking at conferences and sharing new ideas.
Exactly. And you have had so many ideas that have been way ahead of where most of the SEO industry is. I know, mobile first indexing, your whole discussion on Fraggles, on MUM, a number of things, right? That I think a lot of these things, we start talking about them and we don't really know what the implications are, but it's all kind of coming together now. More we see AI changing things.
This is a big one. I was one of the first ones. I recast mobile first indexing as entity first indexing. And that's turned out to be 100% true, right? Mobile first indexing was about reorganizing the index to be topical rather than just link-based and link graph stuff. So, and I'll just say there are people right now who are telling me I'm wrong, and those same people were telling me I was wrong then too. So,
and because we don't know what to do when there's something. What you're suggesting is radical. And you framed it this way. I should say, if you have not watched Cindy's video, I'm going to leave a link in the description. You should probably stop watching this first and then go watch Cindy's video. And she lays everything out really, really well. But you framed it as maybe this is conspiracy theory. Yeah. Maybe this is not what Google's doing. But when I saw your suggestion of what Google's doing in terms of tracking user behavior, that's what really triggered me to say, well, we need to do this call. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I think, are you able to just summarize what you said in the video? Is a lot, but what your main, what are you thinking about what Google's doing?
So the core concepts are that Google is not telling us the truth. That's come out and been proven in the DOJ trials. They're not telling them the truth either, and they're getting rid of evidence, and they're being quite deceptive. And what I do is I put together a bunch of coincidences that are all centered around the launch of mobile first indexing. And I talk about mobile first indexing as they talk about it as two-phase indexing. First, regular crawling and indexing, and then the second phase, which is about JavaScript rendering. And I say Google never wanted to render JavaScript. It's heavy, expensive. It's a security risk, stuff like that. And some tests have shown that they're really not rendering JavaScript much of the time on a crawl, maybe only 2%. But then some ex-Googlers are saying they're rendering it 100% of the time. And so I was like, how could both of these smart people be correct? And then it just kind of jumped out at me. It's like the SEOs that are looking for Googlebot are getting the 2%. And the SEOs that know more about how things work are getting 100%. And the only real answer that comes out of that is that Google is using Chrome as their rendering engine and capturing rendered pages from users' computers. And we already know they do that. They say that explicitly. They capture all the rendering information in Core Web Vitals. So why do we think they stopped there?
Exactly, yeah.
And so that's kind of the thesis. There's a lot of other minor side quest conspiracy theories in there, but that's the main one, is that Google is using our home computers to render JavaScript for them so that they don't have to save time, money, energy, power, and we're requesting the pages anyway. So all they have to do is go find the most recent request on the page that they need. And they say, well, it was 2 seconds between initial crawling and rendering. Well, that's because it took 2 seconds to find the page on someone's computer, potentially,
right.
you know,
right.
And maybe I'm not getting it 100% right. I'll openly tell you, I don't have a smoking gun here, but I have a lot of interesting coincidences, circumstantial evidence, if you will. And the other thing is that I'll put out there, the main point that people are coming back at me with and detracting with is saying, well, you don't have a smoking gun and you didn't run enough tests. So I'm not a developer. I run a one-person company. I have clients to keep, and I had to put the presentation together on a deadline. So I did that, and I tried to get some people to help me run some tests, but nobody was too keen to do it. But now I have people, now that I've put the thought and the idea out there in the way I did, I do have people that are offering to help me test it. And that's kind of what I had to do.
Like, well, and I think we need to present theories, right? And we've sort of made this in SEO, you put something out there and then everybody criticizes it, right? And some of that's necessary. We can't just go saying, well, this is the way it is, right? But I'm glad that you put the theory out there. Let's talk first of all about the rendering thing. I said I'm more interested in the user behavior, but so you're saying that when I do a search on my Chrome browser and I go to a web page, that I'm getting the information for Google, essentially. I'm accomplishing, instead of them rendering the JavaScript themselves with Googlebot, that they're using my computer and my computing power.
The page that you've already fetched. It's not like they're doing extra work. You've already fetched and rendered the page, and it's in your history. And they capture that when you opt in to sharing your history and your bookmarks and things across devices. That's where the opt-in for this happens. And so, for instance, it happens with Android phones. It happens on desktop Chrome. It doesn't happen from iOS devices. Even if you're in Chrome on iOS, for whatever reason, they don't share as much data, probably part of the contract there, but I'd have to find the right document, but it's something I read in the T's and C's about this history sharing and logging kind of situation. So that's when it's shared. And so I think the data, people are like, show me the data. Where's the data? When is it going to Google? And I think it's going in this sharing thing where it goes up to your Google account, and then Google has the history of what you've looked at on your devices and can know that you have a recently cached copy of the page.
And you can go to, what is it, Chrome://histograms, right?
Yes.
Is that what it is, right? So anybody can do that and see, what is that? That's the history of, do you know what time frame? That's your browsing history.
Active tab use. So it has two modes. It has static mode and an ongoing mode. And if you switch it to ongoing and then you click to another tab and click around and then you go back, you'll see the data's changed. And it's just tracking all the behaviors in your open tabs, I think, in that window. And so if you open multiple windows, but that's going on all the time, even if you don't have the histograms open, it's just showing the tracking. And so some people have suggested that maybe that's for Chrome developers who are
debugging. That's a heck of a lot of information for how many trillions of pages are viewed every day, and maybe the debuggers might need to look at a couple of them. It's a lot to be stored.
You scroll and scroll and scroll and never get to the bottom, especially me, because I usually have 200 tabs open. But it's really long and it's really detailed information. And I think the idea that it's for debugging, it can be used for debugging, but like I have a sync, it's for many things. It's not a single use utility in my mind. Just because people can use it for debugging doesn't mean that Google isn't using it for other things as well. And I think that's kind of the myopic view that people are coming with at me and saying, well, it's used for this. Well, fine. It could be used for other things too. And even if we can't prove how exactly Google's using it, the potential for abuse is there, right? Or the potential for use. Google's not doing a good job of avoiding the potential impression of impropriety here, or what have you, even if it's not impropriety. If they want us to believe that they're not capturing loads and loads of data, then they need to do a better job of explaining what it is and what it's doing and what it's not doing, and they need to be more transparent.
And it reminds me of the API files that were leaked or discovered. And in those, we saw a bunch of attributes that might be used in search, but
Might
we don't
not,
know.
but they're there.
Right. And we know, and we saw the attributes for nav boost, the things that talk about the last click, the last longest click, the good clicks, the bad clicks. Some people have said, well, this is just for people who are using Google's cloud search API. If you're using the cloud API, that these are attributes that are available to those developers. But I mean, if they're there, I don't understand why those developers would have nav boost signals. If they're there, then there's a good chance that they could be used in search.
I think looking at Google Cloud search data is so relevant, and all the people that poo-poo it and say, well, that's a totally different thing. Well, they're not reinventing the wheel. Like if they use it in cloud search, they're probably using it elsewhere too, or at least there's the potential to. We know what their capabilities are. This demand for absolute proof, I think, is just a way to not deal with the reality and the ambiguity of
For sure.
possible.
And I think some of I think it's fine to critique and to ask questions. I don't have a problem with that, but I think we should be having these discussions. Just say, well, what if, right?
Yeah.
What kind of things I know the histogram has said pages and pages of information. What things did you find that were interesting in there?
The clicks from search, the information about clicks from search. And then I found it interesting that they're doing it on mobile and desktop and Incognito. And even in Incognito, they have metrics on, did you use a credit card pre-fill for a credit card form? Did you fill out a form from a saved account? Because you can do that, I guess, in Incognito. So they're still capturing somewhat sense that they're not, it doesn't say what your credit card information was, but they say that you used a pre-filled credit card in your account to fill it out. So they're just capturing a lot of data. The thing that I thought that was most interesting, that I think you'll find interesting, is that there were Y coordinates with click tracking.
That is interesting, yes.
How high on the page was it? And that, with responsive design, the Y coordinate is useless unless you at least know the screen dimensions that you're working with, and more useful if you have a rendered page. So you can know what they actually clicked on. And
scroll depth as well, right? Are people actually engaging with the content beyond above the fold content and scrolling down? It's the first thing I did when I opened up mine was to do a Control F to look for clicks. I wanted to see, and there's a number of places where they measured what you clicked on. I think Dan Petrovich, who was the one who kind of showed you the histograms, he talked about, what was it, the distance between clicks? Do you recall?
I can't remember if it was distance between clicks or time between clicks or both. But yes,
it was something to do with distance. Yeah. Regardless, so, and then Google's terms of service, they actually say, and I'm going to hopefully not misquote it, but they do say that they can measure what people click on in terms of ads and content. And so you're giving permission to see what is clicked on, right?
Clicks are in there. Yeah. If you select an ad, you can find them in the histograms too.
Exactly, right? So all of this stuff is stored. So why would Google not use it in their algorithms? It makes perfect sense.
Why would they go to the effort to make this tool if they're not using it somehow for something that makes money, right? This is just how businesses work. You don't invest a bunch of money if it's not going to turn around and make you more money.
Well, and you don't record all of that information for every single browsing session without good reason, right? So let me blab a little bit about nav boost, and then I want to bring it back to because I keep saying, well, we know that nav boost, or we think at least from what we've learned in the DOJ trials, that it uses the information from the Google search pages, but we didn't know whether it used information from Chrome. That's the way I've been framing it all along. And then I saw your video and I was like, oh, well, maybe we have a different discussion here. So the DOJ versus Google trial, especially the Pandu Nayak testimony, which again, I'll leave in the description, the link to it. If anybody's watching this or listening to this and you have not read this testimony, have you read it, Cindy? Pandu Nayak one?
I've read so much. I think
there's so much in it, right? And it's many pages. I've probably spent 300 hours reading this because it actually tells like almost the entirety of how deep learning works. Well, not the entirety. It tells a lot about how deep learning works in the search algorithms, and a lot that has not been disclosed SEOs, which personally I think, like, does Google owe us that? I don't know. That's a whole other.
Yeah.
I'm focused on.
Maybe they don't, but they owe us on a privacy level. They owe us things.
It's not like I'm all on Google's side for everything, but my focus is to try to just figure out what they're doing, not the ethics or the what they owed us, or whether they said. The big discussion when we talk about click signals is, oh, Google said that clicks aren't a ranking factor. When, like, what are they supposed to say? They can't come and tell us the entirety of the algorithm. And really, it's not like clicks are a direct ranking factor. It's not like, oh, my web page got 80 times the clicks of this web page, therefore it must rank higher. It's much more nuanced than that. So well, in the DOJ, in the Pandu Nayak testimony, he talks about NavBoost and he talks about RankBrain, and says, this was the part that I keep quoting, is that RankBrain re-ranks the top 20 to 30 results. So traditional search algorithms get you narrowed down to, they take all the trillions of search pages and narrow it down to hundreds or thousands and then hundreds. And then when they get the top 2 to 3 pages of results, it's RankBrain that completely re-ranks those. And then RankBrain and NavBoost are trained on click signals. And I don't know how much detail I want to go into that. Then my PubCon talk is going to be about how it turns out that the user engagement fine tunes the vector spaces for RankBrain, right? Yeah. So well,
and did you see my talk called EEAT Soup?
Yes, which was amazing.
So I reversed the causality, right? In that, as a potential, at least thought experiment, where we think that the signals that drive EEAT kind of evaluations are things like authorship and schema and whatever, but those things also change how your ranking looks. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're just getting more clicks, and maybe it's not that you did the thing on the page, but you're actually getting more clicks because your listing in the SERP looks better, and that's reinforcing or misattributing what worked. It's the clicks caused by the change.
Let me go on with this, because I think that this really blew my mind when realizing what was happening, that RankBrain, so like Google told us about RankBrain in 2015. It's not like it's a new thing. And there's an article in Search Engine Land, which was written by Danny Sullivan, which is kind of ironic, before he was with Google. And he said, we don't really know much about RankBrain, but Google told him, if you want to learn about it, you should read the Word2Vec paper, which was all about vectors. And at the time, like 2015, I don't think very many SEOs knew much about what vectors were. And because it wasn't until we started learning about language models that we started to like pay attention to this type of thing. And so I was talking with Gemini about trying to figure out RankBrain. I feel a little bit guilty about using, if you use Gemini in AI Studio, it's really, really happy to tell you to theorize on RankBrain. And it's not all correct, but I said, what papers should I read to understand more about RankBrain? And it gave me the Word2Vec paper, but then it also gave me this paper, and I can't remember the name now, but it was authored by Jeff Dean, head of AI at Google, and also Ilya Sutskever when he was at Google, and a couple of other people, talking about how the language models predict the next word. And I like, we won't share, it's super complicated, but the thing that got me was, so there's a vector space, and we have these words in the vector space, and then the way that it's fine-tuned, the way that those vectors are improved, the way that understanding of what this particular concept in the vector space is based on the concept words that are used in relation to that concept. So say I train a language model on dogs, and it's read a whole bunch of stuff about dogs, and it knows that dogs, the context words used around dogs might include that it's an animal, that it lives in a house, that it's certain colors, and we build our concept of what a dog is. Well, say the language model sees kangaroo, and it's never seen that word before. It randomly assigns it a vector, and it randomly checks it to the vectors that are close to that randomly assigned vector. And then when it finds one that's close, it checks whether the context words are similar. And so it will recognize that, oh, a kangaroo also is used in the context of being an animal, and maybe it jumps just like dogs sometimes jump. And the more it trains, it learns the concept of a kangaroo. And so I was like, why is Gemini giving me this paper when that's about language models and I asked about ranking? And it turns out that RankBrain embeds the concepts in a query. So you can take a massively long query and break it down into, well, these are the concepts that the user wants to know about, these particular things, embeds it into the rank, into the vector space. And then what fine tunes it is not the context words, but the clicks of people. So they just like ChatGPT or Gemini makes a prediction on what word to say next, Google makes a prediction on what's likely to be relevant, what content's likely to be relevant. And then it's our actions that fine tune that. So if I search for something and Google predicts it should be ranking, this one page should be ranking number 3, but consistently people choose that result, then the vector actually moves so that it's seen as more relevant because of the actions of searchers.
Yes. Well, and I think that this is why Google so regularly tells us, just like when we ask hard questions, they say just do stuff that your users will like, because they don't even know. It's RankBrain making decisions based on clicks and other things in the algorithm, but it's like, it's not a pre-prescribed list of things that are going to make you rank. You have to fit with what's already ranking and getting good click signals. And then you have to get those same click signals when they run tests and stuff like that. And so that's how Googlers get away with saying, just do stuff people like as their pat answer, because they beyond driving clicks, who knows?
Because what people like is what actually shapes the rankings. And then there's measures they talked in the DOJ trial about measures to protect against clickbait, because I think this is why Google doesn't talk about it, because I've already seen it. I've already seen black hats be like, oh, now we know that clicks drive rankings. Let's go back to trying to manipulate clicks. And that's part of why the quality raters are there. They fine tune the rankings as well. I found an old video from Matt Cutts many years ago where he talked about how they give the quality raters 2 sets of results, but they focus on ones where sites made massive improvement. And then the raters actually rate those. And if the goal is, if there's spam, that they get recognized, and that helps fine tune the system so that it's less likely to reward stuff that people just clicked on because it was clickbait. So in the DOJ trial, when they talked about nav boost, it was clear to me that they used the signals from the SERPs. So again, if I do a search and I click on this result, do I stay there, or do I go back to the search results and click on another result? And being the first click, Cyrus Shepard wrote, I don't know if you recall, on Moz many years ago, he wrote about 3 patents that Google had. One was about being the first click, one was about being the longest click, and then one was about being the last click, which fits with the nav boost signals that we learned about. So I've been like, that's actually what's most important for ranking. Is it's once you're relevant, once you're in the first couple of pages, then you need to convince people that you're the best result. But what I didn't know was whether Google actually uses engagement from within Chrome, because it makes sense. If I'm looking for what is the best product, or should I buy this product? Well, what a better indicator than where people actually buy the product, right? And so the nav boost signals wouldn't tell me that. They might tell me that I ended my search on this site, but did I buy the product? Maybe I just got frustrated. Maybe I was just browsing. They don't know. But if they go ahead,
if you've opted into enhanced ad tracking, they say right in the accept box that you're accepting the terms, that they're tracking conversions in Chrome.
Well, there you go. Which would be the information that you're talking about. So I think that Google uses all of this stuff and in a way that I don't think we can reverse engineer it. I don't think that we can trick it with click bots or anything like that. I think that, and this is the part that's probably awful to say, but when the Google spokespeople say, just create people first content that people like, content that's helpful to people, it's because that produces those signals.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what works for ranking.
There was a different story that I didn't include because it kind of got too long and complex with the UFO theme, but the different story that I wanted to include to help add characters to this framework is, like, I do think that there's a distinct change where we started with Larry and Sergey, kind of happy tech hippies who said don't be evil, and then things shifted and the Ed Zitron article that talked about the code yellow, when those people got in place, where it's like Sundar Pichai and the guy who combined paid and organic into just search, and then that's so problematic, even at a smaller company level, having the same person manage search, organic search and paid search. They have mixed KPIs, and I've seen people make horrible decisions for SEO because they're handling both and they're KPI'd on what's easy to measure, which is PPC, right? And I think the exact same thing happened there. And then the background with Sundar coming from McKinsey and stuff like that. I think these guys who are now in charge, who have taken over from the happy hippies, are just so money driven that they would do that. They want all this data deeply because they know it helps them train their AI models and PMAX and all the PPC things. It trains the journey modeling and the cohort modeling so that they can be a fine-tuned advertising machine, and that's how they make their money. And they're not, I think that part of what surprises the SEO community is they're not shy about it, they're not embarrassed about it, they're there to make money. And so we need to not underestimate that.
I think the ultimate goal is AI. I think it has been all along. There's a video from Larry Page in the year 2000 where he's talking about what limits Google is computational power, and that the ultimate version of search would be that you could ask it any question and it would give you the answer. And he says, and that would be artificial intelligence. And so I don't know if that was what they started out with at the very beginning, but I think it was very early in the journey of Google that they realized that in order to produce an artificial intelligence that would be able to answer any question, they needed the web, they needed search. And I think that for 25 years, we've worked for Google as SEOs to take the world's information and put it into a format that could be eventually used to train AI.
Yes, but don't lose sight of the idea that they're doing the AI to make money. They're not doing it because they want to give away love and rainbows to everyone in the world. It's because they want to make money.
Give away love and rainbows. And let's talk about that. How do you think, I have ideas on this, but what do you think? So the argument that people always give is if Google is answering questions in the search results and not on web pages, that's where their money comes from, is from ads, right? So if content creators are not incentivized to create content, how do they make money? Do you have thoughts on that?
Well, what's happened is a lot of advertisers were making money on low quality ads with different networks or with AdSense or whatever, and Google doesn't make a huge margin on those. And so Google just deprecated or made that just not a viable business model anymore, so that you have to switch to the higher cost ads, to YouTube ads, to stuff like that. So I think that's definitely part of it. And they even say in the testing, making the search results worse to see if they could drive more clicks on ads. This is not the loving hippies that we started with, right? Who just want to organize the world's information and train their AI to answer questions. They're there to make money, and they're willing to sacrifice quality of organic results to send more traffic to paid. And they're willing to do other sneaky things that haven't been called out so much, stacking the top of a search result with YouTube videos where they've monetized YouTube, or stacking the top of a search result with Merchant Center stuff that's hard for the tools to track. So you might have 5 Merchant Center groupings in one result. But we don't have a great way of tracking that or knowing when the Merchant Center grids show up. And so it's hard for anyone to prove harm and to prove Google is sending people to their own property again and again and again. And it's displacing the people who were ranking or who deserve to be there or whatever. And to some degree, it's Google's game to play. But in the EU, it's a little bit different because they consider Chrome kind of like a utility, like the water or the electric.
Yes.
And they say browsers cannot gatekeep data.
Oh, well, that's a problem.
That's a problem. Buying into the narrative I tell in the video, that's a problem. And in the US, when Chrome has the highest saturation of any browser and they're grabbing all this data, even if it's not illegal to grab all the data and it's their right to, it's what's allowed them to create these other monopolistic practices, and it's entrenched the monopoly. So no other search engine has a component like a browser that's as big as Chrome. So there's no way that a competitor can come in and really threaten Google because no one has that much data.
Exactly. And that's exactly the problem. There's nobody that will be able to compete. I see people all the time that are like, oh, maybe Perplexity is amazing and good, but Google's on everybody's phones. That's part of what the trial was, right? And even if they give people the option to switch the browser, people stick with what they know. And so I think we're sort of, I can't see how anything changes where we're sort of stuck with Google is the source of the world's information. I don't know. I think my job is to sort of figure out what do we do with that as businesses. And much of my career has been helping websites that have major traffic drops. The last couple of years have been brutal because of helpful content update. Right. And I don't like what Google did. I understand why they did it, but it was horrible for so many website owners that made their living. I know so many people that were making like their full living was off of providing content for Google and then making money from the ads or from affiliate revenue from that content. And then all of a sudden that's not helpful anymore. Now I understand why, because Google has the informational content. Like the language models now can answer pretty well a lot of informational queries. And I don't know what's going to happen with AI as we see more and more e-commerce, but it's going to happen. We're going to start seeing, right now AI overviews don't show a whole lot of e-commerce as far as I know. I'm in Canada, so I don't see them. But have you seen much in terms of AI overviews impacting the commerce space?
Not yet. It's coming. But what I think is problematic there is there were one or two stories of companies that got totally removed from the index from helpful content, but that were quoted nearly word for word in an AI overview. And that's just theft. If Google's saying you cannot rank, but we're going to take your content and present it as our own and change a couple words.
There's a lot to be angry at. I think I used to have a license plate that said EY Google, thank you Google, and people would flag me on the highway, go, what does your license plate mean? I'm like, well, I made a lot of money just trying to figure out Google. So thank you. I had to get rid of it because people were letting me off and stuff. It hasn't happened since I got rid of the license plate. People are mad at Google. My impression, I know sometimes people flag me as a Google apologist or something, but my thing is I just want to figure out how they work. So this idea of potentially Google using user engagement metrics or some type of measuring of user engagement in Chrome totally makes sense to me, but it actually doesn't change the way that we do SEO, provided you were serving your users from the beginning. It does in some sense. I think some of what we did in terms of keyword research for many years is less and less effective. Yep. And it's hard to explain if you're an SEO, it's hard to explain to a business owner why your traffic has declined when you're doing all the right things in terms of SEO practices. But if users are preferring your competitors, that's a tough thing to SEO.
I agree that I don't think it changes a lot of what we do day to day, but it might change the way you think about what you do day to day or the way you anticipate what needs to be done next. So for instance, if you have pages that aren't ranking well, that should be ranking better, maybe it's because they're not getting any user clicks. Maybe you need to move the link to that or make it more prominent on a page to see if you could get more engagement from one page on your site to that page, or from many pages on your site to that page. And that's not just about internal linking per se, it's about internal linking with clicks. And talking about, oh, we're doing an internal linking project, fine. But if you're just throwing a bunch of stuff in the footer, or you're throwing stuff where people aren't actually going to click, it might not matter.
That totally makes sense. One of the things I've wondered about is, so when in Google's guidance on helpful content, when they added all the stuff about being people first, they had a question about, do you have an existing or intended audience? And the wording's dumb because everybody has an intended audience. Who makes a website without an intended audience? But existing, so my thought was, if you have a website that's created just for the sake of SEO, and that's the type of thing that's not working so well now, and your only audience comes from Google, then you're in trouble.
Yep.
But if you have an existing audience that is seeking you out, whether it's on email or from social media or in the real world that's trying to seek you out, then that's going to be sending the signals in Chrome, right? So Google can see that, oh, this page is super interesting and super useful to people. Maybe we should include it in when people are searching for this topic. So I think that that's some of what happens. I don't think it's cut and dry though, because there's lots of pages that get tons of traffic from email lists that never rank for anything. But I do think that it plays a factor whether you have an audience outside of Google search, and then that can help you. There's been, like, throughout the years, we've always had these discussions about, like, whether if you pay for ads, whether that improves your organic performance, which Google has always denied, right? But tons of people have seen that we started buying a bunch of ads and then all of a sudden our organic rankings went up.
Well,
that could be why.
Maybe it's related to this, where you pay for in ASO. I can tell you 100% download volume and velocity are organic ranking factors that you can manipulate by buying ads, right? So if you buy ads, you drive downloads, all of a sudden you're ranking better as a whole on a lot of different keywords. And I think in SEO, what might be happening here is you're buying ads, you're driving clicks, and those initial clicks don't count, but the engagement on the site does. Because what if Google is looking for a balanced portfolio of clicks, that some come from search and some come from social and some come from everything else? Then that would make plenty of sense. They're just looking for basic engagement data, not engagement with paid and engagement with organic, but they're not even filtering the paid out at that point, maybe.
Interesting. I think they're just looking for signals that can represent that people like this. And I think it's as simple as that, which again is what Google always says, is create content for people, for an audience of people. And that's your answer. Well, I don't know. Anything else you want to add? I think that was I got to what I wanted to get to there.
I don't think there's anything I need to add. I'm trying to think of the most important points in the video and the main pushback that I've gotten. And I think I already talked about that a little bit. Well, one more thing that you might be interested in is I do mention something that didn't even hit the SEO community, but it was more discussed in the I think security community. And that was that browser extension that was baked into Chrome, but not available in your extensions menu. So it was a browser extension that monitored CPU and GPU usage across all of your tabs. And it actually came baked into Chrome, Brave, and Edge. But you couldn't see it as an extension. It was just an extension that was already there. And it was sending data about your usage back up to Google, and you couldn't delete it, anything like that. I think that's interesting, and that's one way of monitoring, where the people who are looking, like people who want to do deep dives and want to trace packets and whatever about data that Google is getting. I think that Google is more clever than they think, and they might be using these secret extensions to send data. It might be baked in with that data. Also, what Dejan explained to me, I might not do it justice. You're both much more technical than I am, but he showed me the numbered folders in the Google app software on your computer when you install, or not the Google, the Chrome one. When you install Chrome, you get all these folders, and some of them are just numbered rather than named. And that's Google trying to hide things. And so he's been taking time going folder by folder, trying to figure out what they all do. He gave me his basic list, but he hasn't figured out what all of them do. But he said he found that in the Chrome install, there's TensorFlow Lite, which speaks to and I have no way of proving that. I would have to get him to help. But as I recall, that's what he was explaining to me. And that's what gave me the stronger feeling that it's not just that Google's rendering or capturing all this engagement data from SERPs and from web page visits, but that they might be pre-processing a little bit, because he did find a language model in there.
Interesting.
So that speaks to the idea, the SETI idea and Bitcoin mining and whatever, of like, it's not just capturing rendering and engagement data, but it might be pre-processing a little bit.
Right. You had that quote from Ben Gomes that something about, share that.
That's a good quote. It said something along the lines of, he's the guy that was building mobile first indexing stuff. And he said, I'm trying to figure out how to make the page rank algorithm work on thousands of different computers and they're not very good computers. And my point is, I think he was talking about our home computers, not stuff that Google own.
Yeah, it does kind of make sense. I keep thinking of this video that Google put out in 2012 about the knowledge graph. And they say something to the extent of people teach Google systems. I'm going to have to, I'll link to it in the description too, but really, like, all along, Google needs us. They need our searches. And as we search, whether it's for search or whether it's for Gemini, for their AI, our actions teach Google about the world, which makes Google better. And so it really is like this giant hive mind of, and there's risks with that, because if you know that, then there's the potential for manipulation, perhaps. I think we're going to see all sorts of new types of spam that come out of people trying to manipulate this knowledge. But
well, I think some people, it's overall gotten really great response. I have to say, I expected a little bit more criticism. I think
it's gotten fantastic response.
The people are pretty much on board, but I think the people who are resistant to the idea or just don't even want to think about it is because it's been hiding in plain sight and no one wants to feel like they missed it this long. And that's fair. But then the other thing is, I'm getting the people who are pushing back on it fall into two camps. They're either saying what you said, which is like, we've known this forever, you didn't share anything new, or they're saying this is ridiculous and absurd, that could never happen. Mm-hmm. You're just making stuff up. And so it's like, we knew it all along. It's impossible. It's such a weird place to be, but at least I'm in the middle of it, right? I'm getting both.
Yeah, I think what I hope comes out of this is what I've been hoping for many years now, is so much of the industry has been fixed on practices that were based on a search engine that doesn't exist anymore. Yes. And I see people come to me all the time and they're like, I'm losing clients, or I don't know what to do to help my clients. And they're working on things like building links links that really don't matter, and keyword research to find gaps of stuff that their customers are not even interested in. They're just creating content for Google, which was like really old style SEO. But the problem is that there's no, how do we change that? Because if we come out and say, well, here's what I think, well, that's just my opinion, right? You shared your opinion and we can go with that, but we don't really have a set of standards for the industry. And I find that really difficult, because search is not going away. Some types of websites I think are no longer necessary, a lot of informational websites, but as long as there are businesses that need customers, SEO is still around. So
mass content creation is so, has always been a bit silly, but now it's even more useless. And the example I give in the EEAT talk is like, we don't need hundreds of thousands of dentists writing pages about how to floss. Mm-hmm. We just
You got it. Yeah. I think Google did, though, for a while. We could go into conspiracy theories again here, but I think that Google encouraged blogging and gave us this opportunity to make a ton of money by mass producing content. So that they could learn. And that's why they gave us FAQ schema, so that we could win little SERP feature, a rich result in the search results, and they learned the frequently asked questions about a topic. Yeah. And so every time Google gives us something and gives us an opportunity, it's because they need our data, they need our information, they need us to train their computers so that they can make more and more money and achieve their goal. I do think that their ultimate goal is AGI, which it's funny, if you Google search engine, Google's nowhere in the search results. I don't think that their end goal is actually to be a search engine. I think it's to end in AI, which is a whole other discussion, probably. Yeah. So, well, that was good. Cindy, where are you taking clients?
I'm definitely taking clients. And if anyone has questions about the video or wants to discuss it, I'm really eager to discuss it, because I think it's important. I hope it gets a little bit of coverage outside of the SEO sphere, because I think we need to be holding Google to account, at least on these privacy concerns. And we need a little bit more transparency. And I think that the DOJ trials need more attention as a whole from mainstream mainstream society, we give Google so much of our information and we trust them so much, but it turns out they might not be worthy of that level of trust. And so I hope, so anyone who has questions about the video, wants to talk about it, I'm happy to engage. I'm easy to find on Twitter. That's the easiest place. SUZZICKS is how to reach me there. I'm also on the other socials, but they're just so hard to use. So I'm still on Twitter /X, or you can email me at Cindy, CINDY @mobilemoxy.com. Those are the best places to reach me. But
what type of clients do you take? What type of work are you looking for? Or
I usually have large enterprise clients, and I do specialize in more technical SEO. I'm not someone who's going to tell you need to create a bunch of content, because I think that's having diminishing returns now. But I think fixing technical issues, crawl issues, X issues, that's my bread and butter, and I love helping with really complex SEO projects.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you for doing this. It's always so good to chat with you.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks in PubCon.
Oh, you're going to be there. Excellent. We'll hook up then, and we'll have a good chat. Thanks.